Welcome in to episode 012 of the Modern Dealer Podcast. My name is David Farmer, and with me, as always, is David Bertoncini. Quick hello from you, David.
Quick hello. Hello, hello.
And with us today, we also have a very special guest, Sam Raabe, General Manager of Brandon Honda. Can you please say hello to us?
What's up, guys?
All right. We're very excited about having you here with us today. Before we get going, David, let's first of all, what are we drinking today?
The good old nitro from Cowell Coffee, and of course,
third or fourth time in a row.
You know what? The nitro is just it just kicks me right in the ass where I need it, and just gets things rolling and going. Speaking of kicking in the ass, if you're new to our channel, be sure to click your notifications and subscribe. Ding. Ding. Make sure you do that. And if you are new to the channel, like I said, we're helping dealers just go bigger and faster with digital and taking you to the next level. David?
Yeah, so today's main topic is the disruptions to the franchise dealer model. And now, so we've been on, this is episode 12. Can you believe that, David?
This is 012.
Yeah, so we've been doing this for, basically 3 months. So very exciting. A lot of the conversation that we've had over the last few months, I think where it really gets exciting is when we talk about the things that are disrupting this franchise dealer model, which really has been the same since the turn of the century. The last century, yeah. Right? So not a whole lot has changed in the way that dealers sell cars, but a whole lot of things have changed in the way that customers buy cars, which I think is putting companies in a position to adapt how they're selling cars to be able to adapt to this new way customers want to buy cars. So that's going to be our main topic. But before we get in that, since we do have a very special guest with us in Sam, I do want to, let me just take a moment and give you a little bit of my history with Sam and the dealership that he operates, and then we'll take a few minutes and have you kind of tell us your story, because I would like to hear a little bit more about it, and I believe that our listeners would as well. So Sam is the general manager of Brandon Honda. The managing partner of Brandon Honda is John Marazzi. My business partner in Entice has been a long time good friend of John Marazzi. I've been an admirer of his businesses that he has operated over the years. And I've been doing business with him as a vendor for the last 6 or 7 years. So we handle, at Entice, we handle a lot of the digital marketing for Brandon Honda and his other dealership. He utilizes the technology that we provide. We also have the opportunity to work with him in other areas for social media, for digital display, and digital video. So I just wanted to put that out there that we do have a long relationship. So Sam, if you don't mind, please provide us kind of an introduction to who you are and kind of what your story is.
All right. So first things first, how do we get on the coffee program? I see there's only 2 cups at the table.
And we didn't get you one. I didn't get you one, don't worry.
Well, especially
on the break, we'll hook you up.
So profoundly put it, how good it was. So
yeah, man.
Definitely want to get on the coffee program. So I started with Morgan Auto Group in 2006 at Honda Vocala, and I was a salesperson there, and got promoted to finance there. Spent about 6 years in finance as a finance manager at Honda Vocala. And right around the end of 2011, a couple buddies of mine that were at Honda Vocala were transferring to Brandon Honda, and they asked me if I wanted to go with them. So went up to Brandon Honda, interviewed with John, and he gave me the job. I saw it as a great opportunity to go to a bigger city. If anybody's been to Ocala or knows about Ocala, the option I had was not that hard to figure out. Right? Yeah.
Cal patties.
Yes. So it wasn't that hard to figure out. So I went to Brandon Honda. From there, as a finance manager for about 3 months, and became sales manager. Then John promoted me to GSM about 3 months after that, and we've been growing our business ever since. When John got the opportunity to partner at Sun, he made me general manager at Brandon Honda back at the end of 2015. So I've been growing the business ever since.
So a couple things. First of all, Sanford Badish. So that's the first car I sold at Sutherland Toyota, this guy named Sanford Badish. And he was I'm sure he's dead now, But I always remember the first car I sold at the dealership. I don't know why that kind of stuck with me, but I actually sold Joe Reth's demo. It was a 95 Burgundy Camry to this old crotchety guy that came in and said, "I ain't buying a car today." So anyways, that's kind of what it stuck with me. So tell me about the first time that you sold cars. What do you remember when you first started?
So the first dealership I ever worked at was Kendall Kia in Miami.
Okay.
Yeah.
First dealership I ever worked at. I'm in Miami. I'm living there, and I'm bartending on Ocean Drive at the Colony Hotel.
Okay.
And, I was just fancy cars up and down the street all day. And I said to myself, what am I doing? So I drove to Walmart and I bought a shirt, a tie, belt, slacks, shoes, went in the Walmart bathroom, got changed, got in my car. First time I ever tied a tie.
Love it.
And drove up and down US 1 in Miami looking for some sort of a business job. I didn't know it was going to be in cars. I drove by Kendall Kia and I saw a sign out front that says, "Now hiring inexperienced will train. Paid training." Paid training. I said, well, that's me. Inexperienced, paid training, I'm in. So went in there and got hired first day, started selling cars, quickly realized that in Miami, if you want to sell anything, you have to speak Spanish.
Yep.
I split every single deal I got.
Yep.
Yeah, probably some customers that spoke English too,
Right.
but that's how it is when you're the new guy. But I remember my first car deal too, and it was a Mustang and it had a $500 flat on it.
Love it.
And I remember I'm the new guy, and one of the old veterans there was showing me, how to do it and how to take the test drive and how to do everything the right way. That 500 flat never got my paycheck.
Got it. I saw where that was going from the low.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome, man. Now you said you were bartending, and nobody like said, "Hey, you should try the car business." You just on your own just said, "I'm done with this. I'm just over it."
So I had a little bit of something.
An aha moment.
Well, and my dad sold cars for a little while in Ocala. My dad sold cars, and I always thought it was really cool that every week he'd bring home a different vehicle he got to drive. Back in the day, salespeople got demos.
Yes.
Right.
And so my dad would come home in F-150s and Explorers and Excursions and Mustangs and all this stuff. And I thought, man, how cool is that? So I always kind of had that in the back of my head,
Ford dealership he was at then?
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yep.
Cool, man. Well, that's kind of like, the way I got my start was in Seattle, Washington, and then I came down to Florida, but I wasn't selling cars there, but somebody had told me, it's like, man, you got a silver tongue. You should, what are you doing working on planes? You should be, selling cars. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And wind up, here it is 22 years later, and here we are.
Yeah. And then, I started working at Sutherland Toyota in 1996. David Bertoncini started in 1998. So our shared history goes back to 98, selling cars together.
The 90s.
Yep. It was good times, man.
Different world.
Yeah. Different
Yeah.
world, exactly. And what's great about the podcast is that we really get to compare what's happening today compared to the way that it was in the 90s. And,
Right.
Pre-internet, post-internet, and now really into kind of a mature digital world. So, a topic that always comes up. And I think, being really the last people to sell cars before the internet, and then the first generation to sell cars with the internet, really provides a fantastic point of view, I believe.
Yeah, because we went through the transition. I mean,
Yeah.
we went from index cards to now we have a CRM, yellow pads to a better an actual BDC, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I mean, you just had all this transition from paper to digital,
Yeah.
and we went through that transition and then came out the other side, and now it's beyond digital. Now we're getting into the topics that we're covering today is just some disruptions in the old business model to the new business model, and like we talked about last week, how social is having one of the most biggest effects on this business model change.
Yep, absolutely. Before we get into the main topic, I just wanted to mention one article. So in all of our podcasts, Sam, what we do is we create a slideshow deck. So it's a Google slideshow, and I make it public, and I put it in our show notes. So whatever we're talking about and whatever we have referenced in this slideshow is going to be available to anybody that wants to see it. So the first thing that I have here is an article featuring you in Automotive News, where you were one of the 40 under 40, and I think that was back in 2012 or 15. When did this
15,
article?
15, yeah,
2015 that came out. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
It was very unique. It was awesome. I got an email from Automotive News, and I think it was just I don't think it was directed at me. I think probably a lot of people got the email, and I said to myself, "Man, we've been doing so good with myself as GSM. Why not put my name in the hat?" And they gave me the option to do that. So. You basically go online, you kind of enter in what you've done since you've got there. And, when we got to Brandon Honda in 2011, the month we took over, the store retailed 157 cars.
Yep.
And in 2015, we were already knocking on the door of 600. We were in the high fives, low fives every single month, and profitability was good. Our service operation was good. Everything was good. So I figured, man, I got a lot of good accolades to give this a shot. So I entered in all the information, put in kind of the things that we've done and profitability and growth and revenue growth and everything like that. And next thing you know, I get a call from Automotive News. They wanted to verify everything, so they asked me for some people at the dealership that could call and verify everything from. And then I'm on the phone doing an interview with them. It was pretty cool. It was a really neat part of my life to realize it kind of brought everything into perspective and made me look at it from an outside point of view, like, oh man, we have been doing this good. When you get kind of in the sauce, you're in the middle of it every day. Taking a step back and looking at it from the outside in kind of gives you a unique perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you started selling cars at the Kia dealership, you didn't see yourself doing this interview a few years later then, right?
Right, yeah, not even close. Like most everybody in the car business, you plan on it being like a stop along the way,
Right, like it was a stepping stone to go to somewhere else, but
right.
I mean, here it is, it's an entire career path.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, and my career in the automotive industry, I think, is a little bit different than most. I think most people start in car sales with the ideas, okay, I'm going to do this for a while until I can figure out what I want to do, right?
100%.
When I grow up, after, this is my stepping stone. When I grow up, I'm going to be something else.
But for now, this will do.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm going to do real quick is we're about 10 or 12 minutes into our first segment. Let's go ahead and take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to get into our main subject. So stay tuned. Welcome back into the second segment of the Modern Dealer Podcast, episode 012. Having a good time with Sam and Dave. We're going to move right into our main topic. And one of the articles that I saw recently, David and Sam, was an article about Carvana. So the article itself, I'm going to go ahead and pull it up on my screen here in just a moment. But I wanted to, I pulled out a quote that I want to go through. So this kind of picks up on the podcast that we had 3 or 4 episodes back where we did a deep dive into the Carvana experience. And great podcast, episode 007. If anybody's interested in learning a little bit more about the history of Carvana, we cover a lot of that, so I'm not going to get into the history here. But one of the things that I pulled out from this article, and which we'll kind of get into, is this is Mr. Garcia, who is the CEO of Carvana. He said, the way we think about our business is we want to try to build a way to get cars from customers to customers as cheaply as possible. Because all used car transactions are really just customers trading with each other. And I love this idea. So this is kind of what my take on this whole idea, and we talked about this a little bit right before starting the podcast today, is disrupting the model, breaking it down, collapsing the existing dealer model. So right now, Sam, your business model or the franchise model that you're operating right now, which everybody else is also in the automotive industry, is that you're selling new cars. You have customers 40, 50% of the time trade in their old cars.
Right.
Now, the cars that they're trading in, maybe half of them you keep. I don't know. Maybe you can share a little bit more on that. But the ones you don't, you end up selling at auction. Another dealership buys that car at auction and then fixes it up and sells it. So the model there is somebody trades the vehicle into you. You have to pay to transport it to the auction. Usually you're going to doll it up. You're going to clean it up a little bit before you sell it so you can get the best wholesale value that you can out of it. You're going to pay auction fees. The buyer is going to pay auction fees when they buy it. they're also going to be the last person holding their hand up, so they're going to make sure that the most amount of money is going to get paid for that vehicle. And then they're going to have transportation fees back to their dealership. They're going to have reconditioning expenses. They're going to have to advertise that vehicle, and then they're going to have to sell it, and they're going to have to pay a commission to do that. So all of those costs, transportation, there's a lot of duplication, buy fees, sell fees.
Selfies.
Boom. And then commission to sell the vehicle. So if there's a way that a disruptor can move into the space and say, hey, there's problems with this deal here. Let's get rid of the auction fees. Let's get rid of the sales commission fees. Let's get rid of the duplicated reconditioning fees because you're cleaning it and you're cleaning it. And let's get rid of the transportation fee there and a transportation fee there. Now, all of those fees ends up being an opportunity for to transition into revenue, and then you take the profit that would normally be going to the other dealership, you get rid of that. So now you're at the market for a cheaper price, and you're able to change the business world, right? So Carvana's been able to do that 100,000 times last year, and I want to say that if I remember my statistic correctly, the last quarter of last year, 50% of the vehicles they sold, they bought from customers.
They were trades.
That's true. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's where their cheapest cost of acquisition is. And to your point about that model, when you take in a trade at a dealership, we would love to retail 100% of our trades. We end up keeping about 70. The 30% we don't keep are simply because of safety problems. Like we don't pick and choose based on what we think our market will or won't buy, because with the internet, you can market to just about anybody. So anything that we take in on trade, if it passes the safety inspection, we keep it. Because an auction is the worst place to buy a car. So,
yes.
I mean, you're the guy that's willing to pay the most for that vehicle. Then on top of paying the most for that vehicle, you're going to pay transportation fees, to your point, then pay auction fees. You're going to bring it in. Then you got to figure out what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because there's a reason why you, as your store, you're a big store, you got rid of that car because you saw it wasn't going to pass safety. Now the smaller store winds up purchasing the vehicle, and either they need to try to retail out of it or take it back to the auction, because I know small independent dealers that do like some auction hopping, that they'll buy one at one auction, then they'll take it to another auction
Arbitrage.
to try. Exactly. To try to pick up $500 from one auction to the next, just moving that same vehicle without even trying to retail out of it.
There's definitely a market for Carvana. I mean, they're smart. Their business model is a good business model. They're going to retail cars in our world. What we have to do as dealerships and as operators, customers want convenience and they want simplicity. Pricing for the most part, I mean, they have to play in the same world as we do. Customers are going to get their trade-in values. Like if a customer wants to sell a car to Carvana, they're not only going to give Carvana a chance at appraising that car. They're going to figure some other things out on their own.
CarMax, they'll try a couple other points.
Right. And pricing for the most part should be fairly competitive between a dealer and Carvana or any of the other online retailers. What customers want is the simplicity and just the ease of use of using Carvana. They don't want to go into a dealership, deal with a traditional salesperson. So our angle is trying to provide the most easy buying experience for our customers possible, having a way for our customers to get all the information on the website they can, their trade value, their credit score, find out what interest rates are, find out what lease and finance options could be right from our website. They can do all their shopping, something that makes them feel comfortable about getting enough information to where you're almost arming them with something that makes them feel comfortable about going to your store, so when they get there, there's no surprises, because people hate that when they go to a dealership, and so that's what they're trying to avoid by using Carvana or some of these other services.
And like you said, it's for the customer, it's a more comfortable transaction for them, so they can do all the shopping from the comfort of their own home. Other sites, they can sort of do that, but getting on to Brandon Honda.com, the customer could basically just do the entire transaction practically at home. Same thing with Carvana. Carvana's made it easy for the customer just to say, hey, I don't have to deal with a salesperson, I don't have to deal with a finance manager. When that is put into their mind and their entire marketing, you drive on your way back to Brandon today, on your way home, you'll see the billboards on the interstate, purchase 100% online with 0% salesperson. And that's the message they're driving home. Yep. And as a modern dealer like yourself, you're having to fight that to drive a new message to the customers like, hey, we're going to make it easy for you. You can actually start the transaction at home with the tools and software that we have with our dealership.
Yeah, so the things that I love about the business model that Carvana has built, number one is their transition to changing their acquisition model from buying from auctions to buying from customers, I think is brilliant. And I think that move right there is more important than the vending machines, than the delivery trucks, than the 0% salesperson. I think that's what's going to allow them to really disrupt the dealer model. And 100%. I think that most dealerships, if they're trying to figure out how they can compete with Carvana in the future, I think number one is going to be from vehicle acquisition. So you, as a dealer, become the first place a customer is going to try to go to sell a car, and then the other end of that is on how they can buy a car. So I think that the acquisition model is brilliant, and I think the selling process is really brilliant too. And I think another thing too that's really interesting is you think about this idea of 0% salesperson. We know based on our research in our Carvana episode is most customers that buy a car from Carvana tried a traditional dealership first, didn't like it, didn't get what they wanted, and they're forced to move over to Carvana. And then the reality is we know that even though they say they're 100% online, they're not 100% online. There's somebody on the other end of the computer, other end of the messaging, or other end of the telephone that's facilitating that process. Whether you want to call that customer a salesperson or a clerk, there is another person there. It's not 100% online. It truly is from one person to another.
It's not like Domino's with a pizza tracker?
No. there ain't no robots.
Yeah, I mean, they have people at their facilities inspecting these vehicles, washing them, cleaning them. They have to take them to a dealership to get them reconditioned and serviced and everything,
Recalls
just like we
done.
do. I mean, they have the same business model we do, or the same business we do. They just eliminate the customer from having to deal with a salesperson, and that's their whole sales pitch. And it's smart because a lot of customers are tired of it, and because there's a lot of salespeople that don't do a great job. In today's world, you've got to think about the customer's time. You got to think about, the experience that the customer wants in today's world. What do we all want when we go somewhere? We want someone that's going to value our time, get us in and out. No BS.
Chop, 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 man.
Right.
We just want it done, hurry it and quick. I mean, that's why. You got to look at us right now as a traditional brick and mortar dealer, as almost like a Sears or like a Circuit City or something like that. Which, hey, things are running okay right now, but moving forward with little disruptors, with eBay coming along, we can go back to 1999. We go back 20 years ago in the business, and just like, they used to tell us, and David and I being in the business so long, like, oh, you can't sell a car over the phone. And they used to say that to us, and we're like, I guess, well, wait a minute, I just did this whole deal. I got this customer to buy a car basically over the phone. Oh, you'll never be able to sell a car through the fax. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, I just faxed this guy a credit app, and he filled it out, and I got him approved. Well, you can't sell a car online, and now look, Carvana is less than 1% market penetration, but they're disrupting the market. I mean, really, the numbers are 100,000 vehicles at $3,500 a clip PVR. Like, holy shit, man!
These PVR?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
They're crushing it.
Yeah. And that big transition happened when they changed their acquisition model. And I don't want to speak for them saying that they've changed their acquisition model. I think they just became more successful at acquiring with the advertising campaign that they did, that they're going to buy cars from you. So not only can you buy a car online, you can also sell your car online. I mean, it's a good advertising shtick, and it is definitely working. When they were successful in acquiring more vehicles that they sold, they were able to buy better cars and buy it at lower acquisition costs, and then not change what they're selling the vehicles for, but pick up that additional margin. They had like a 50-something% increase in margin from $1,300 or $1,400 a car to $3,500 a car.
That probably happened right when they changed that acquisition model, or adapted their acquisition model anyway, right?
Yeah, I think so. And one of the things that I saw in our research for Carvana, I think some of the challenges that they've had is, and really it opens up an opportunity for dealers to really talk about the value of buying from a dealership versus buying from Carvana is that the quality of the car and the quality of the reconditioning of the car, I think, from my experience, is subpar to what you'd traditionally get at a dealership. So the customer they're getting cars with dents, dings, and scratches on it. They're calling them out so the customer is okay with it, which is interesting. And they're coming to the customer less than the type of clean that you would normally get at a dealership. So I think that dealers that are doing it the right way have an opportunity to use that as a selling proposition, that the quality of the car, the quality of the reconditioning process is going to be far better than it would be if you were to go to one of those online retailers.
So they say they spend $1,000 per car reconditioning is about their cap. They got a cap at that. I know some other dealers which are really not in the used car market, right here in the Tampa Bay area, that they cap their reconditioning at $300. Now, having a cap on reconditioning, obviously we need to have a cap somewhere on recon, but if that's all they're going to do, it's just like, all right, well, we're going to have to sacrifice a detail in order just to throw a couple things on here to get a few reconditioning items done. Like maybe they did some tires and like, okay, we just do tires and it's just going to be a wash and send out. And they never even detailed the motor. They didn't do the trunk area. It's like a rental car clean. Basically what you're getting is like a rental car wash and vac is about the extent of their detail. And as a dealer, I mean, clearly we want to make a vehicle showroom ready versus rental car ready.
Yeah, we're going to spend some money on vehicles. Our average recon at our dealership is $1,200, so it's not that much more than Carvana. But we get to pick and choose some of our older vehicles that we keep for retail. Some of our like pre-auction units. Yeah. We won't put that much money into them because they're vehicles we may send to the auction anyway. But our good late model trade-ins, we're going to spend some money on, make sure they look great.
Yeah.
And so reconditioning. Matter of fact, I believe Carvana is signing up with different dealers around their locations to use them as the reconditioning facilities.
That makes sense. That does make sense.
A little satellite, no real estate investment there, just kind of renting the space.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things that I did see here, this was in that article as well, he said that we got a real business with real operations. He said, noting Carvana's 7 reconditioning centers that put about $1,000 in parts and labor into each vehicle the company sells. Now, that's a little contradicting to some of the research that I saw previously when I was doing research for a Carvana episode, where they said that they were able to get a vehicle from in and out of a reconditioning center in about 90 minutes. So you think about what can you do in 90 minutes. So that gave me the impression that they're buying rental cars. They are running them through kind of as quickly as possible. They're not spending a lot of money on reconditioning. They're not spending a lot of time on reconditioning. And we saw the results of that in customers that were taking delivery of vehicles from Carvana, where they had more dents, dings, and scratches than they expected. They had dirt in the cup holders. There was dirt in the trunk. Didn't have any floor mats. So there's a lot of challenges with that in customers getting their cars, where I think that when a customer goes to a dealership, they're able to see the car, touch the car, and they're getting, in my opinion, from operators that are doing it the right way, they're getting a much higher quality vehicle. And the vehicles that don't pass those standards, those are the vehicles that you're ending up putting, off to the auction and selling it to somebody else to then go through the efforts of finding a vehicle that's. I'm sorry, I didn't know where I was going with that last part. The great thing about a live podcast, sometimes you just start saying words. But I did not know that Carvana was actually looking to outsource some of those reconditioning to dealerships. That's a very interesting concept.
Yeah, so Morgan Auto Group and we actually are working on being one of those, Brandon Honda's working on being one of those recon facilities. There's a certain part of the population that's okay with making sacrifices on cleanliness of a vehicle, on maybe the reconditioning. They're okay with making certain sacrifices in order to make something just convenient for them. They're
100%. You said it, man.
Ding, 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 ding. That's exactly what we found out.
And that's the people that Carvana are going to get to. And your Now Car, and there's other ones out there.
Yeah, actually, on the next slide, Vroom.
Yep.
Is that our,
Vroom, that's another one of them.
yeah, because they're hitting the airwaves too now with the same type of message that Carvana is.
Right.
I mean, it's just McDonald's and Burger King, but just Carvana came to the market first, and then as the McDonald's, and then Burger King here with Vrooms coming up right behind them. So, want to get into Vroom here?
Actually, let's go ahead and take a break, and then we're going to come back, and we'll talk about Vroom, and I also want to talk about the selling process in a dealership, which I think we can take from Vroom and kind of move forward. So with that, we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back into the third and final segment of Modern Dealer Podcast, episode 012. And we're going to get right back into it, picking up on Vroom.com. And I'm just going to talk, I just want to mention this, and I really want to get into some ideas on how we can compete moving forward with these disruptors. So these are the types of companies that dealers are going to be competing with. Recently, they raised $440 million in venture capital. That was in 2015. And then they raised, then went IPO, right?
Yep.
And then they raised, they did not go IPO, but they reached profitability. But then they just raised another Series G. So that means they've had these different series of funding, another $146 million, which was led by AutoNation. So dealers are competing with companies that are raising hundreds of millions of dollars because they're seeing opportunity in the marketplace to take market share from the existing dealers. So what the dealer community needs to do is figure out, well, what can we learn? How can we change our business model to not only compete, but to dominate these, tech companies coming into the automotive space? So I think from your perspective, Sam, I would imagine that you have some ideas on some key areas that dealers should be paying attention to make sure not only they compete with Carvana and the like, but really dominate them in their local market. So what are some of those things from your perspective?
So new car dealers have a really unique advantage over any of the online retailers in the fact that we sell new cars and we take in trades. We lease customers' vehicles, and when the customers bring back those leases, we get the opportunity to take those leases back in, and we're going to take it, less than any other, person can acquire a used vehicle. We talked about auctions a little bit earlier. Yep. But even Carvana's strategy to acquire vehicles from customers, I mean, you go to their website, they've got a button to buy and then a button to sell or trade.
Yes.
And it's one of the smartest things they did, to your point earlier. But we have a unique advantage where we sell new cars and we take late model trade-ins, less than just about anybody else can. So we already have an advantage, and we can't forget that. And as a new car dealer, missing a trade is probably one of the worst things you can do. You're not getting that customer. You're not getting that used vehicle. You're not getting your service gross profit. You're not getting your parts gross profit, and you're not paying any of your people. So any deal with a trade-in, my team and myself know whatever length you got to go to get that car, just get that car. That's our used car business.
Yes.
Our new car business determines how our used car business is going to go. Having a unique selling proposition is big. There are a certain amount of customers that are just not going to want to deal with dealers. And Carvana and these online retailers, they're going to have a presence. They're going to sell cars. I think the CEO said his goal is to sell 2 million vehicles. You look at like what CarMax does. CarMax is the biggest used car retailer in the country.
Yep.
And they only have 2% of the market.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're the biggest one in the country, and they're 2% of the market.
And 2 million equals 5% of the market. So they're looking at being 2.5 times the size of CarMax. That's where they see their opportunity.
Right. What's the used car SAR? 40 million?
Yeah, it was 40 million. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what we've got to take advantage of the customers that want a relationship with the dealership. And so what we've got to do is create a unique selling proposition that separates us from our other dealer competition and the online retailers. Because the online retailers, customer buys a car from the online retailer and they're done. Like if
the relationship's over.
Right, relationship's over. Something happens to the car, take it to a shop. Figure it out. If something goes wrong, if you can't refer anybody really to Carvana. I guess you could tell your friends that's where you got your car or whatnot, but there's no relationship there, right? There's never like a feeling of mutual kind of support.
Right. Go see my friend Sam at Carvana. Wait, there is no Sam at Carvana.
True.
Right.
But I go see Sam at Brandon Honda, then there's a conversation and there's a relationship. So it boils down to like we talk about a lot of tier 4 relationship marketing.
Yeah. And so where I think a lot of dealers go wrong is taking care of the customer when they come back. The conversation happens in my store and every store in the entire nation. Customer comes back in 6 months after they bought the used car from you, and it's got an issue. And we take the position of you're an owner.
Yeah.
Right.
It's got a problem. I mean, 6 months later, it's a used car. It's going to have issues. You can't look at things like that. There's consumers that will buy a vehicle from a dealer because they want to know, they want to have that relationship, and they want to know that somebody's got their back. The very minute we stop getting their back is the minute the customer starts saying, well, I'm going to go somewhere else, or I'm going to do the easy path, the convenient Carvana purchase or whatnot. You can't look at a customer like that. Even if it's out of warranty, even if it's 6 months, a year down the road, you got to take care of your customers in order to keep them coming back. And you got to do it in the service department too. Your service customers are going to end up being your sales customers.
Yes.
They're going to end up buying your cars from you. So, you got to have that cycle. You got to take care of them in service. And sometimes it might not seem fair. It might not seem like the dealership should have to do anything, and you don't have to do anything. But the more you do, the more you build that loyalty, the more you build a good customer base, and less attrition you're going to have from consumers going to these online retailers.
And that's more important today with social media on how they're able to let other people know that they're dissatisfied with a dealership. It's very easy to leave a review. In the 90s, we didn't really have that. We had the Better Business Bureau, right? We had Channel 8. I'm going to call Channel 8 News on you. I mean, that's what we had.
Or write a letter.
They still say that.
Yeah.
They do. Yes, they do.
8 on your side.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right. So we have this business model right now, the franchise dealer business model, where we're selling new cars to customers. And the manufacturer is warrantying those vehicles to customers for 3 years, up to 10 years. And those customers are coming back if they have issues, getting repairs done. And if you maintain a good service a relationship with the customer, you're going to be able to have an opportunity to resell that customer, whether they purchase that vehicle from you or not. If they're getting their service work done there, and you're putting processes in place to take care of that customer from a service standpoint, when they are looking at replacing that vehicle, you're going to get an opportunity. This reminds me back when I was working at the Toyota dealership. I started a BDC there, and we did a very unscientific study to all of our customers in some telephone sales follow-up for service customers and sales customers, and we found out that 60% of the cars that we were selling in the new car department were coming from either repeat or referral customers. 60%. I would have to imagine that's probably pretty similar to what it is today for many dealerships, depending on how transient your area is. But yes, I agree with you 100% that if dealers are looking to compete with Carvana, it's really not about competing with them, but it's about doing a better job at what you should be doing now. Taking care of your customer, servicing your customer, standing behind the product that you sell, and not allowing customers to defect.
Yeah, and if you don't want them to take a whole bunch of your market share, there's going to be customers that buy from them. But if you don't want them to take a bunch of your market share, you also have to appeal to the customer that wants that convenient simplicity.
Yes.
You have to appeal to the customer that wants to go to your website. They want to get information before they ever show their face in your dealership. They want to know that you're willing to stand behind what you give them on the website. They want to do it from their couch. And so you got to be able to offer them trade value on your website. You got to be able to give them finance deals, lease deals on your website. And at the end of the day, you also got to offer them to deliver the car and the paperwork to wherever they're at. We're all busy. You got to have a way to appeal to that customer that just never wants to set foot in your showroom.
So it really is less about competing with Carvana and Vroom and other online marketers. It's more about evolving, right?
Yeah,
it's
100%.
evolving to what the customer has been telling us. So the customer has been telling us that they're dissatisfied with the existing sales model. It's not something new. It's been around 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. But now there's competitors coming to the space and say, hey, dealers, if you're not going to evolve, guess what? We are. We're going to give the customer this other opportunity. So we're going to give them a different channel to go through. Where I think you're exactly right, is that now dealers just need to evolve and listen to what customers are saying. And they're saying, hey, 61% of the customers that bought a car, according to the 2019 Buyer's Journey study by Cox Automotive, 61% of those buyers thought that their most recent purchase experience was the same or worse than it was their previous purchase experience.
Not
so
surprised.
we need to get better, and what we need to do as a group of dealers is to identify what is important, and that is providing an online purchase experience. Why not? They can buy anything else they want online. Why not evolve that into your process? So I think you're absolutely right. And I also think that it's more of a hybrid approach where you should offer a full service experience at your dealership for the customer that just wants to walk in and go through a traditional 6-hour purchase process, or somebody that wants an expedited process where they can do a lot of it online and complete the transaction either in the showroom or have it delivered.
I will just tag on to that, going back to the 90s. I had a customer, one of my very first customers, I wound up selling them about 35, 40 vehicles from when I was a salesperson to a sales manager to GSM. This customer, every time we sold him a vehicle, he wanted this Carvana experience. He always paid cash. He wanted the vehicle, just bring the vehicle and the paperwork to my business, drop it off and deliver it, right? So go out there, sign all the paperwork, pick up a check, come back without a trade, have a dealer trade guy follow you. Moral of the story is, customers have been telling us since the 90s, like, hey, I want to be able to do a credit app on, over the phone or online. I want to be able to purchase a vehicle. So we still, slowly evolving, but the customers evolved. I mean, with technology, they've evolved with what they wanted, the dealer experience. Going back a couple episodes ago when we talked about Tesla, Elon Musk had said, hey, he identified from him not even being a car dealer. He's never sold a car in his life. And he's like, hey, every customer I've ever talked to said they would rather go to the dentist than go to the car dealership. So how do we evolve the experience with Tesla? They did a great job evolving the experience. And their business model, not quite like Carvana, but they just made it extremely transparent. Get all the information you need. Sam, like you were saying, give the customer all the information. Give them the best price you got online. Give them their trade value. Give them financing options. And give them a delivery option. Do you want to pick it up here at the store, or do you want us to deliver it to you?
And so many dealers are going to be reluctant to think that way because they think gross profit, build business. But at the end of the day, you can build your gross profit. You might compress your margins a little bit by doing this, but by giving the customers what they want, you're going to grow your volume, and your store's going to grow. It's going to retail more cars. It's going to grow your service operation in the future. And so you don't need to sacrifice gross profit. You just need to plan ahead and think about growing your volume and growing your store that way. The gross profit will come. But so many people are scared to maybe give the best price online because customers are going to shop you. But if you don't give it to them, they're not going to shop you at all.
Right?
Right. Yeah, you're out. I mean, because basically it's realistically it's not the best price that's going to win. We've all hit the bottom. You're not going to get any cheaper.
Right.
I mean, everyone, with all third parties, checking with cars.com, TrueCar, just checking any third party site. It's just going to verify that, okay, this is within a few $100 of the pricing I saw. Let me move forward with this transaction. And of course, winning that customer, winning the service opportunity, because you got to feed the machine, man. We'll take in, like you said, a 50%. Trade ratio is that every vehicle you're appraising, and if you're taking in 50% of them, you guys are doing a good job then, right?
All right.
So
Amazon has proved that customers will pay more for an experience, where you can probably find something a little bit cheaper than you can on Amazon, but it's very easy and simple on Amazon. I would pay more for that experience. Starbucks proved that customers are willing to pay more for an experience. You can get a cheaper cup of coffee. You can get a good, cheap cup of coffee from Denny's, right? Or any other, place.
Denny's, really?
Yeah. Hey, I like Denny's coffee.
Waffle House,
dude.
Yeah, man.
But I mean, there's a lot of other cheaper places you can get a cup of coffee. But the experience of being able to go into Starbucks and you get the ambiance, you get the music, you get just the feeling that you get for going there. So people are willing to pay for an experience. So if we can evolve the car dealership experience into something that is enjoyable, just like how Elon Musk wants to create the Tesla experience is just make the customers happy. Don't, make them want to come back was the one thing that he wanted to do with his sales process. Just make the customer want to come back. So if we can, as a dealership, as a dealer body, evolve our sales process to make customers enjoy it, whatever it is, there's a pain point, let's get rid of it and do it where we're not fearful of providing information. This goes back to, when I was selling cars in the 90s, you were selling cars in the 90s. We were talking about selling into the 21st century, Grant Cardone and the Cardone sales process. I worked for Grant and the Cardone group and training that business model. And it really was about giving information, about providing transparency. So it's nothing new. It's the same thing, when I developed that BDC back in the late 90s, I developed ePencil, the first desking solution of its type. It created transparency then with the technology that we had available then. Telephone, fax, a little bit of email, but it was providing estimates of down payments, monthly payments, figures on your car, allowing a customer to schedule a test drive where we would deliver the vehicle to them or expedite the process in the dealership showroom. So it's nothing new, but I think now we have a little bit of pressure on us because competitors are in the space saying, hey, if you're not going to do it, we're going to do it. Right? So yeah, I think that you're exactly right. New cars, used cars, sales process, time, transparency, one price. There's one area that we could probably talk about as we kind of get close to wrapping up the podcast as a few of the last segments is people, salespeople. So Sam, one of the things you might not know is what we've been talking about with the Modern Dealer podcast is a transition of what the responsibility of salespeople are, and I'd like to get your take on it. So one of the things I firmly believe is that we are in a transition of the responsibilities of salespeople from being a product expert and moving into the era of salespeople being process experts. The mobile phone and the internet gives anybody the access to have any question they can think of answered within a matter of seconds. They're bringing mobile phones, smartphones to the dealership. They're using the micro moments of sitting in the Publix shopping line to do their research, looking at YouTube. We know that customers will complete twice as many test drives on their mobile phone as they will in real life. So I think it's less important now for salespeople to be experts about the products that they sell, but more experience in the process of buying a car, making it faster, making it easier, understanding what needs to happen in the process. What do you feel about the difference between being a product expert and a process expert?
I think the answer lies in the middle somewhere because customers call a dealership for a reason. They have questions.
Yes.
Right? They want to know answers. And so they can get a lot of answers about product online. You can do all that. But even sometimes we may have the answer online, but we want to call somebody just to verify that
Absolutely.
It's not smoke and mirrors.
Yep.
So I think they need to kind of be in the middle somewhere. They need to know about their product to answer questions, but they also need to be able to help facilitate the most easy, convenient, simple process for the customer. Not this cumbersome ordeal that the kind of the traditional dealer body has done for a long time, but facilitate an easy, simple process for the customer. Answer the questions on the phone.
Yep.
Don't BS them. Tell them what they want to know. Shoot them straight. Treat them like you'd want to be treated if you were making the phone call, and invite them into the dealership to take a look at your inventory, or invite them to your website to get any other questions answered they have about your trade value, your interest rate. They can do a credit app on the website, so they can do a lot of stuff from the comfort of their own couch. But the salesperson should make it as easy on the customer as possible and help facilitate a short buying process.
So I think from an operator standpoint, there's a few big key things that you need to be highly attuned in. One is advertising and marketing. The other is making sure you have the right inventory at the dealership. So when customers do come in there, they have the selection that they're looking for. And the other is the people. So one of the things I remember reading in your 40 Under 40 is you talked about the people that you were bringing into your dealership for salespeople and how you looked for certain characteristics of salespeople and really looked more towards inexperienced salespeople than experienced salespeople.
100%.
So this is 2015 to 2019, so it was 4 years ago. And you moved into a GSM role in 2015?
2013, GM in 2015.
In 2015. So you've had 4 or 5 years of your personal experience as being the general manager of the dealership. Has that changed at all in the last 4 or 5 years and how you're getting people? And maybe just talk about what you're doing now to make sure that you have a good team. Are you having struggles in getting people when you get them, your training process? So if you're giving advice to a new general manager in relationship to building a team, what are some of the things that you'd be looking to share?
So we love hiring inexperienced salespeople because you can bring them in. We look for qualities in character. We look for qualities in work ethic. We look for qualities in honesty and integrity. And we look for things like that in somebody in an interview, not necessarily sales experience, because, it's not, we have a good training process. And we give a salesperson 30 days before they have to worry about getting a commission. We pay them a salary for 30 days. So we have a 30-day window to train those people where there's really no stress or pressure on them, to give them time to kind of get acclimated to the environment and understand how the sales process works. We still hire experienced salespeople because I feel like you need to have a mix of a lot of them. Because if you only hire inexperienced guys, your management team's going to be so busy all day long. They won't have time to work with customers. It's very difficult. Experienced guys are great. They know a little bit about the sales process. They make it a little easier transitioning into their role at the store. But still our favorite person to hire. We love hiring military. We love previous sales experience. We love any customer-facing kind of previous job history where we can bring them in and show them our way to train, our process, and kind of walk them through everything, but they don't have any bad habits from any other previous dealerships. But yeah, we still love doing that. And those are some of our best salespeople. That we have guys that have been there. We have finance managers, sales managers, internet directors that never sold a car before they got to Brandon Honda.
I love it.
Half our sales staff never sold a car before they got there.
I remember, so one of the first experiences that I had with Brandon Honda in working with you is being part of the hiring and training of a group of salespeople. And I want to say it's one of the first few groups of salespeople that we did. And Grant Hawking was one of them.
Yeah, he was.
So it's somebody that we hired, we trained, 4 or 5 years, 6 or 7 years of career with Brandon Honda, and now with the Morgan Automotive Group in a different role. So yeah, definitely a huge opportunity in the car business. I love the car business. It all starts kind of where we started with our podcast. It all starts with that Sanford Badish. It all starts with that Ford Mustang.
Yeah.
It all starts with going to Walmart, getting a tie, and then moving into the into the car business. It all starts with going from Seattle, working on planes.
It's funny as you talked about. You went to Walmart to get that tie. When I was in Hong Kong, you could buy $2 silk ties off the street, and I bought like 10 of them. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I got out of the Navy, but I was like, I want to be in business one day and wear a tie and do something. But I bought 10 ties off the streets in Hong Kong. I'm like, oh, what a deal. No idea what I was going to do, but just like you do, just like, I'm throwing a tie and we'll see. We'll just roll the dice. We'll figure it out, right?
I love it. Well, guys, I tell you, this has been my favorite episode so far. I love what we're talking about. I love the idea of being aware of what the competition is, being aware of where there is opportunity for car dealers to really embrace the change that has been put upon us by technology, the internet. So I want to thank Sam for taking time out of your busy schedule to come here. Hopefully we can get you back and we can take this and evolve this conversation as we move forward in time. I know that we'd absolutely love that. Any closing thoughts that you have before we get this thing wrapped up today?
Yeah, last thing I want to say, just to touch on kind of the whole the idea of this podcast that we're doing, that I neglected to mention earlier on how we can separate ourselves from these online retailers. And we just talked about people. It's grooming good quality people that will give a customer what they want, and not necessarily everything they want, but give a customer the experience they want, and that are good and have good integrity and good character, and people that you would want your family to deal with if your family was buying a car. That gives customers a good sense and a good feeling inside them, and it makes them feel like they want to do business with you. So grooming good people is the other part of this that we never talked about. I mean, having somebody on the other end of that phone or somebody on the other end of that conversation that's going to take care of your customer, be a custodian custodian of their time and really value the opportunity that they have.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'll say about that is that maybe instead of trying to figure out how to be like Carvana, is why don't we embrace what they can't do and be proud of the fact that when you buy a car from Brandon Honda, you're dealing with 100% salesperson.
The 3 Ps that boils down to my recap's going to be on the 3 Ps. The people, the product, and the process, primarily putting your people first, because at midnight tonight, Brandon Honda, equivalent in inventory and equivalent in process somewhat to another competing Honda dealership, but what that competing Honda dealership does not have is the people, your team behind Sam and his team. So put your people first will be my recap and the message to send to dealers.
All right. I appreciate it very much. Thank you so much. We'll continue this again. And I think that's it. It's a wrap.